And before we jump into this week's analysis, worldrugbyshop.com has all the official merchandise from the Six Nation teams. Visit worldrugbyshop.com. In this video, I'm going to look at England across the 2026 nations which they won and how John Mitchell, the defence coach of England, has set the team up. Now if we look at the stats, you'll see with turnovers won, England are actually middle of the pile. But if we switch us around and look at dominant tackles, England are top of the pile, consistently more dominant tackles than any other team in the competition. And this is the absolute crux of England's defensive system. It's built on numbers on their feet, line speed, dominant tackles and repeat. They don't really have many jacklers. You've got Tom Curry, potentially Jack Willis to come in, but England aren't a jackling team. They're a pressure team who want to force mistakes, and they also want to force teams to kick possession away. And the stats further highlight this. So the top 10 of turnovers won by players in the tournament, England only has one player who comes in fourth, Maro Itoje. And interestingly, 5 turnovers he won were all turned over in the tackle. They weren't a poach or a jackal or steal, all in the tackle. So let's get into footage. This is from a kick, so they're getting into their defensive formation. France do get a little bit of a rumble on here, but as we play through, you'll start to see what England do regarding how they get set up. So they don't really contest the ruck unless they're likely to win it, but they're looking for that line speed, and they're particularly going to target that first pair of hands because that's going to allow them to win the gain line and then force a kick. I wanted to show you this one. This is the rare occasion that they do go for the poach, and actually Curry does get this. Common themes. You'll see early in the phase count they won't go anywhere near that ruck. Okay, they'll get their numbers on feet. They're looking for a defensive overload. They're targeting that first receiver. They're trying to get double tackles on that player. It's all about winning the gain line. So one low, one high. It's just making France go backwards. Chop tackles, first receiver, just trying to slow it down. And then you can see Curry going in and gets one of his turnovers. England had a pretty miserable 60 minutes in France before they got going, and then in round 2 they went to the monsoon in Scotland. And you'll see Scotland found a bit of an edge here, and actually this is a great defensive situation because Scotland can only do really 2 things, and they can either kick the ball or they've got to come back in field. So England can get lined up, line speed. Again, they're targeting that first pair of hands with a double tackle. They're looking to win that gain line. And as this play unfolds, you'll see a common theme. So they try and disturb a ruck a little bit there, but the focus is all about getting numbers on feet. You can see Maro now, he's ready to get off that line. Launchbury they're like in that sprinter position. Big line speed. It's forcing Scotland into mistakes, into errors. And this is England's game plan defensively to a T. You'll see they're back on their feet, numbers, they're ready to go. They're always chomping at the bit, borderline offside. They're playing right on the edge of the law because they want to win that gain line. What that does, forces Scotland into kick, a regain of possession. So moving to round 3 against the Irish from set piece, very similar theme. So you've got good line speed. If I just slow this down, no one goes near a ruck. England are just worrying about getting the numbers on their feet. They want the line speed. So when we just speed it back through, they're just putting pressure and they get in Ireland behind the gain line. Look at all the Irish forwards. They're having to go backwards. It's just slow ball. Target that first pair of hands with the double tackle. Bit of pressure, line speed, they're sprinting. There's Maro, he's getting out. Look, he scrags him. England have made 20 metres here purely by getting organised, getting numbers on their feet. Double tackles on that first receiver. Ireland are now 30 metres back. They're trying to force things. England get the possession back. Round 4 now against Wales. This is like a carbon copy of the one we just saw with Ireland. Play through. If I slow it here, just leaving that ruck alone. They're letting Wales commit numbers to the breakdown. They're getting on their feet. Line speed. So Wales are pretty much on the gain line now. Doesn't worry England. They're ready to get off that line. They're targeting the first pair of hands. Double tackle. There it is. You can see Maro getting loaded with Jamie George, sprinting off the line. Now if you look where that line out was, Wales are behind the gain line, or they've just made it there. North tries to sneak around the corner. Courtney slows it down a little bit. Numbers on feet. Here England go. Double tackle, first receiver. Common theme. Leave a ruck alone. It's just pressure, pressure, pressure. Wales are still pretty much on where the line out started. All that effort. Playing through. Great line speed. Tuilagi cuts off the passing play for a turnover of possession. Now final round in Italy, and there's no real change in England's style of play. So they're just shepherding Italy here. Farrell has a half go at it. Again, they're just targeting that first pair of hands, putting pressure on, leaving the ruck alone. Big pressure from Maro. Jamie George is out there too. So Italy have got the ascendancy, but remember we talked about that wide ruck. There's only one way to go. So you can get them on the return with heavy line speed. It's exactly what England do. Now they're just hassling. So we're back to where the scrum was. Even when they make a little bit dent there, no problem. Coming hard off the line, force Italy into the kick. So you can just see throughout the whole Six Nations a very common theme from England. They don't necessarily go for the jack or the poach. They like to get their turnover of possession through line speed, numbers on feet, getting the dominant tackles in, which they won with the stats, and then just repeat until they get the ball back. Thanks very much for tuning in to The Contact Coach. You can visit my website for all the analysis pieces at contactcoach.com, also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Thanks for tuning in.
One shot, not a future for sure.